Well, hello everyone. We are so thrilled that you are here today joining us for our Conquer Your Career session. It's going to be a great conversation. We're talking about all things marketing and brand management, and we have some amazing, incredible women leaders here today who are going to share their perspectives and their experiences and insights and hope that you'll learn a little bit more about this potential career field. So with that, let's get started because I know we have a good conversation ahead of us. So, a little bit about what we're going to be speaking about today is, for those who work in marketing, they typically have an eye for consumer needs and consumer satisfaction, and they interact with a lot of different business units to make sure that the voice of the consumer is heard really throughout that entire process. So, our panelists today have found their fit in marketing and brand management roles, and we'll discuss the knowledge, skills, and abilities that helped launch someone into this career path. So let's get started and learn a little bit more about our panelists. So first, I'd like to introduce you to Mridula Goyal. Mridula comes to us with an MBA from UT Austin and is currently a senior analyst with the Analytics Center of Excellence at Kohl's. Mridula, welcome. We're so thrilled you're here today. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I did my undergrad in India in 2015. My major was engineering, chemical engineering, but I knew I didn't want to pursue that area. And in India, I then worked with an analytics consulting company for 4 years. So at that time, my role was very focused on data. I was close to business, but still, I wasn't necessarily thinking about business decisions, but I wanted to move into that area. I wanted to be the one making strategy and advising on it. So I came to the US and pursued my MBA at UT Austin. And from there on, I went on to take up a role in analytics with goals, where now I am much closer to strategy and technology and customer experience.
That is wonderful. I feel like, Merdula, your story is probably one that some of our other attendees here today have as well, where they're transitioning or wanting to transition into a new career field. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that experience throughout our conversation. All right, next up, I'm pleased to introduce you to Danielle Hunt. Danielle is currently a brand manager at Ocean Spray and holds an MBA from Indiana University Bloomington. Danielle, could you tell us a little bit more about your career path?
Sure, definitely. So I also graduated from an MBA, I mean, an undergrad degree outside the United States. So I went to Ivy Business School, which is located in London, Ontario. And upon graduating, I moved to Costa Rica for a few months to study Spanish. But when I decided I had to be an adult, I spent majority of my career at a nonprofit where I did finance and operations for majority of the time period. During that process, I was exposed to a situation where we were in an economic downtown, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to fill our seats so that we can make sure that we're meeting payroll and continuing the program. And that's when I was exposed to trying to come up with how we were going to fill these seats, which was technically what a marketer does of like, how do we solve business problems? And that was really the impetus of me saying, okay, now that I really know what I want to do, I'm going to go back and get my MBA. So that's when I applied to Kelly. And through that process, did internships, did a lot of things within Kelly to be able to get me prepared for my career afterwards. And then after my MBA, I started working at Ocean Spray, which I am today. First started in an innovation role, but now I'm on the brand side. So happy to talk more about it soon.
Thanks, Danielle. I'm excited to hear more about that career journey as well. Again, love hearing about how people are kind of finding their way and finding their interests, and using the MBA to do that as well. All right, last but not least, I'd like to introduce you to Jessica Stark. Jessica is the global marketing lead for aviation and travel retail at Bose. She also graduated in 2023 from Duke University with her MBA. Jessica, could you tell us a little bit more about your career journey as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I did not have as big of a shift in my career as the other two. My undergrad was at Texas Tech University and I majored in advertising. Starting advertising shifted to marketing eventually. But while I was at school, I really grew a love for media planning and really figuring out how to spend budget to get to consumers. And after I graduated college, I went into advertising agencies doing just that, doing media planning. And big benefit of that for me was that I got to experience a lot of different products, a lot of different consumers. But I also realized that there was a ceiling on the impact I could make with a business. And if I really wanted to help drive a brand, I knew that I needed to make a shift and get on the other side of the work and become, work more in brand management and on the marketing side. So as I was trying to do that shift, coming from an agency, I found it really hard to kind of break through and get to that other side of the work. And I got recommendations from my mentors that an MBA could be a really good opportunity for me for both the short term and the long term of getting on the other side, but also helping to elevate my career long term. So I ended up doing an executive MBA program at Duke. And it was really the best decision I ever made. Learned so much from my classes and also my cohort. And those are just things I never would have been able to learn in my day-to-day life in advertising. During that time while I was at Duke, I actually moved into the brand side and started working in integrated marketing at Fossil. And then once I graduated, I was ready to really put my MBA to work. So I began, networking and utilizing the tools available through Fuqua to find a new position. And I ended up making a very valuable connection through a Forte virtual career fair and getting connected with someone in talent acquisition at Bose. And then after lots of conversations, I ended up getting a position here. And I've been here for now 2 years, just hit my 2-year mark here at Bose. So really excited to talk more about it.
Congrats on your 2 years. That's incredible. And I didn't realize that you met your contact at Bose through Forte. So that's
I
a
did,
really
yep.
exciting story too. Oh my gosh, I love it when that happens. Well, we are in for a fantastic conversation today. So I want to get started with some questions for our panelists. And I think we're going to start with Mridula. So Mridula, what are some possible career tracks within marketing? I think this might be helpful for folks that are still kind of deciding which area of marketing that they're most interested in. So could you share what are some of the similarities and the differences between these different options? And then which ones did you explore when you were in your MBA?
All right. So I'll just start with saying that marketing is huge, and depending on the industry and a person's experience, I think they can define or describe different roles to you in a different way. So this is just me coming from my experience. I think of marketing on a spectrum of from creative to analytical and technology. So starting with creative, think brand management, communications, creative artists. So that is like one whole group of roles. Then moving towards the more analytical side would be performance marketing, growth marketing, media, those who own the media budget. I know some of the panelists mentioned that. Then moving a little bit more towards the hardcore analytics, which is the world where I come from. So you can have customer analytics, strategy management, data science, pricing analytics, and within that, there could be a lot more breaks and a lot more verticals. And then shifting more towards the technology side, it could be product marketing, digital technology management, program management, marketing. Those who are probably responsible for implementing more efficiencies and technologies and just streamlining the processes within marketing operations. So yeah, this is how I tend to think about the different roles. And of course, they will vary by the size of the company, by the industry. And talking about the roles that I explored, I think coming into my MBA, my background was in analytics, so I knew that. And during my MBA, I discovered my love for marketing in general. So that became a natural fit, that marketing analytics is one possible path. But I think starting out, I was open to all sorts of opportunities. But with time, I realized that maybe getting into more creative roles, it would be harder for me to get to. And I ended up within marketing analytics. But the thing that I do love about my role and about the company and the team that I'm at is that even though I am in analytics, I get to touch a lot of different areas. So I get to work with the e-commerce team, with the strategy team, with the media teams, technology teams. So I get to understand their perspective and think about the strategy in a broader way and make recommendations. So, yeah.
I think that I like the way you described it in terms of like a, creative to more analytical perspective. And I think it's really, really interesting that you were able to kind of meld your previous experiences with your passion for marketing, which I think is really great. I think a lot of times, folks don't consider like the full spectrum of opportunities. And so I'm so glad you're able to, be here today and share a little bit more about how you thought about, what your next step would be. So thank you for that. I'm going to actually transition this next question to Danielle. So, Danielle, we're talking a lot about the MBA. How has your MBA training uniquely positioned you for your work in brand management? Are there particular skills or experiences from business school that you still rely on today?
That's a really good question. So one of the great things I think about an MBA, regardless if you are getting your career later on in marketing or finance or anything, it really shows, it allows you to pivot. So I think for me, when I came into like Kelly, I knew that I had an experience mostly in nonprofit accounting, and the MBA was able to give me the tools that I needed to be able to exceed once I left Kelly. I know this every school doesn't have this, but like one of the things that really prepared me for my business school life afterwards was really the CMA, which is a Consumer Marketing Academy at Kelly. And we really had weekly classes on Fridays to really talk through all the different things that as a marketer we would see from day to day. So we might talk about like IRI or Circana, or talk about things when it came to like consumer research. And one of the things that was really pivotal in getting me ready for my internship, what I think is a really great thing about an MBA, is we had like a project with companies out there that were looking to solve a problem and gave us a question that would be similar to what we would be doing once we went to our internship. So one of the things I think that's uniquely great about school in general is like you will have access to different types of classes. So you can take to our earlier point of like a creative class where you're trying to think through all these things. You can take an innovation class, you can take an analytical class, but all these different classes allow you to get prepared. And one of the things that I know you opened the question with earlier was, or at least started with, was more like as a marketer, you are basically the hub of the wheel and everyone is coming to you. So the MBA is also really great. And I always tell people you should not just take marketing classes, you should take classes in other subjects because you are in charge of the P&L, you are in charge of working with operations, you are in charge of working with maybe a product developer if you're like in a food and beverage type of incident, but like you have to be able to use all these different skills to make sure that you're getting the knowledge you need to be able to make decisions, because everyone's going to be coming to you with their knowledge and their expertise so that we could look for ways to drive the business. So I personally think like one of the biggest skills that you need and that you should take advantage of when you're in your MBA is leadership skills, because you're going to have to know how to influence people who you have no control over. So like take classes or that might be even leadership focused, or you can even take like a leadership role inside a different type of club. So like you really have to gain those skills. And like one of the things that will also come with that is like communication. So like one thing you'll need to know is like how do you communicate within like a presentation type of format, but also you might need to know like how to write easy emails for people to get alignment with and all that kind of stuff. So I think the MBA in general, just for me, was from moving from someone who was in a non-traditional marketing role, how do I get the skills and like how do I put myself in different situations so that I'm getting those skills. So I was able to do all those different things so that when it came to my internship or even after my internship, things that I thought I was missing, I made sure that I was like focusing on them. So the MBA just in general, even if you're not doing marketing, you decide we didn't convince you to come to the great side, is a really good place to figure out how you can get the tools and the skills that you need, because regardless, when you start going up in your role in any organization, you really need to know how to influence as well as lead with being very communicated.
I love how you mentioned so many different things that are related to one another within the student experience, right? It's like leadership skills in student orgs. It's taking classes outside of your area of focus to be well-rounded. It's these real-world consulting projects. It's, influencing without authority. It's communication. So I think I love kind of the holistic way that you thought about this question. And I think you're totally right that the MBA is this unique kind of moment in time where all of those skills can be developed in kind of a new and like comfortable way. So I appreciate the way you thought about that, Danielle. Thank you. Our next question will be for Jessica and Danielle again. So Jessica, we'll start with you. Could you describe the recruitment process for marketing and brand management roles? This is a long question, but what strategies or tactics did you use to prepare for your MBA level interviews? And then what recommendations do you have for folks who want to stand out from the crowd during the recruitment process?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the recruitment process, what I'll say is like every company is different. They're going to have their own systems, their own processes. So my biggest recommendation to, withstand the recruitment process is to network. Network, network, network. Find people that you can talk to, find people through your schools, find people that are connected through Forte, and talk to them so that way you kind of have more of an understanding of what that company is like and how it is the best way to get on board. The strategies that I used whenever I was getting ready for my MBA level interviews was like really use the resources that I had at my disposal. We had career coaches at Fuqua. We had, mock interviews. We had resume reviews. So really utilizing all the tools that you can. And if you're not in an MBA program right now, but you're still trying to crack in, use your colleagues, use your friends, use some sort of outside source to really understand what it is that you can improve upon to practice talking to people. Because even just if you're presenting at work or you're in an interview, the biggest thing that you can do is just practice talking because it takes the nerve off of it. It takes the edge off of being able to, get tripped up in an interview. So I think that's the biggest recommendation. And then the third part, and if I'm missing a part, let me know, Libby, is what recommendations do I have to stand out? So for, whenever I talked about how I moved from advertising agencies to marketing and it was really hard, that means that I went on a lot of interviews to get to the marketing, the brand side. And something that I learned was that there were a lot of cases that you had to do, a lot of projects to just kind of understand. And I want to provide support for that to say it's not scary. It might seem scary whenever you're given a project for an interview because you feel like you have to put everything into it and you have to, just nail it. That's, in my experience, not the full point. The full point is for them to understand how you work. What is your thought process? So whenever you're getting these interviews and whenever you're getting these projects, really take the time to understand what is the story you want to tell about yourself and put that into the work. What is the strengths that you want to showcase and really make those visibles? Because I think as long as you do that, that is a key component to really make yourself stand out from others is by having those key, inexplicable qualities that you can't just have come through in, just talking about yourself. But if you have it come through the work, then it's really lets you shine.
I appreciate how you talk, like your comments about just like practice speaking as like in many different formats and ways, whether that's with your career coach or, alums or colleagues. I think that that's really a good thing to underline because the more you do it, to your point, like the less nervous you might be that you're going to trip over your words. So I think that that's a great thing to take away. And then of course, like making sure that you're utilizing all of the resources in your MBA because I liked to think, but I used to work at an academic institution, and I like to say to the students, like, when else are you going to have access to all of these career professionals at your disposal who are really just focused on helping you get to your next step? So love the shout out to make sure that they connect with the Career Center. Danielle, same question to you, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Something that's actually fun, I saw it on maybe Good Morning America thing or something yesterday, and they were talking about how to look for jobs. But another resource that a lot of people don't tap into is their professors. And a lot of them have really great connections with maybe even consulting work that they do. So like maybe sometimes ask them if there's like a company that you're really interested in, or if there's a connection that they actually could make. And as I think about like how do you stand up or stand out within like an interview process, I think when you're going to start asking questions to the company, make sure that you have like thoughtful questions, not questions that you can take from one interview to the next, because it really shows that you're interested in, and really take some time trying to understand like why you want to work at the company. Because when you're sitting on the next side and you're listening to a few people hour after hour, some of the responses end up being the same. So like, how do you make sure that you're not generic like everyone else, and like you're actually showing that you're passionate about it and really want to work within that company? And then another thing that I think is really helpful that comes through a lot, especially in brand management positions, is like a case question similar to like what Jessica said. So like make sure you understand like the 4 P's and the 4 C's. And then when you're starting to talk about them within those contexts of whatever the question might be, that you're weaving it into it, but you don't have to like say, and for pricing, I would do this, but like try to practice how you would say it naturally and be like, I would be thinking about like, am I pricing this correctly to make sure that it's matching with like the positioning? I'm just saying any 4P at this moment, but like you want to make sure that you're not overly showing that you're thinking through the 4 P's, but it's coming through by how you're answering the question so that they understand. Because as someone who's been on the other side and like you are really scared about like, am I saying the right thing and all that kind of stuff? And like they're not going to be sitting there and be like, she went through the 4 P's. They want to make sure that they're following your logic of how you're going through it so that they could make sure that you have like the marketing competencies that you would need within this role. But a lot of people understand like you're still in your MBA, you've probably never done marketing. They just want to make sure that you're really have that like thought process of how you're going to get to the answer. So I really think it's, to Jessica's point, a lot of practice, truthfully, and making sure that you're thinking through what it is that you want to say and like getting that thought across. And like what I've done in the past sometimes is even like go on the company's website, look at their values, look at all the different things that they've been doing and try to figure out like what could the actual questions be that they might be coming to ask you about. So I think those are some of the ones that I would probably incorporate as well.
I like your comment about like that last thing the last comment that you had about like, see if you can try to anticipate it because there's probably going to be some question that's related to, I'm going to guess like their mission or core values or something like that that you can kind of piece together. So I like that thought process, Danielle, and I appreciate you mentioning to like, do the work, do the research, don't come with a question that's easily Googleable, like find something that is really relevant to you that you are most interested about the company. Thanks to both you and Jessica. That was fantastic. For our next question, we're kind of transitioning away from how to get the job, and now we're talking about what you do on the job. So this question will be for Mridula. What's a typical day like for you, and how does your work have an impact at your organization?
I'll talk in terms of a typical week because that is how my work is structured usually. So Monday mornings, I and my team, we are responsible for the weekly business reviews for the marketing organization. So this is that, hey, Kohl's as a retail company, we ran maybe a friends and family offer last week. How did that perform? How much did we get any new customers? What were our goals and did we hit those goals or not? How did we perform against the plan versus last year? A lot of like performance measurement. So that is how my Mondays go. And usually during those Monday calls, we are sharing the performance out with the chief marketing officer, with the VP of media, and they might have questions that, hey, in media, we had this additional investment over social, over Meta and things like that. Can you tell me, did that have any impact? Did we get any additional visits on the website through that? So the rest of the week could be about working on those follow-ups. And the rest of the week can also be about just maybe working with the technology team. So right now I'm focusing on the e-commerce business. So we have a huge e-commerce technology team. They are at all times maybe working on several features that, hey, this needs to be improved on the website versus the app versus mobile experience. And the way retail works is that we have to keep updating our strategy, changing the strategy depending on the market conditions, depending on competition. So we constantly have to keep re-evaluating our priorities. So maybe somebody will reach out to me that, hey, can you give me so and so information? We need to prioritize these 3 initiatives and want to know how customers use mobile versus app. So yeah, just a lot of thinking about the data, how that impacts strategy, how we can use the data to prioritize. And so yeah, impact wise also just helping the strategists make better decisions for the company.
I think that's a great way to sum up everything that you mentioned. And also just, it sounds like you get to ask really interesting questions and kind of play it out in real time and see how the consumers respond. So that would be really exciting and interesting. Okay, next question for Jessica. How did you decide which companies to pursue in your job search? And do you really have to love the product to be successful in your role?
Yeah, it's a great question. I might have a little bit of a controversial take on this for some marketers, but I don't think you need to love the product that to really be successful in a role. I'm very lucky that I work for a company that I do love the product. I listen to music all day. I even have my earbuds in right now to do this call. Bose noise cancellation is great. Anyways, so it's it's not a requirement though. I've sold so many products whenever I was at agencies, when I've been at different brands that I didn't use. I've sold to moms when don't have kids. I've sold fashion when I don't really consider myself fashionable. And right now I'm selling aviation headsets and you could not pay me to fly a plane. So it's not really what you need to be in the role and be successful in the role. What really makes you successful is putting in the work to understand the customer and really, really understand what it is that you need to do. And that really helps you to move forward and push the brand forward. So whenever you're looking for a company, you need to do a few things. My biggest recommendation is to talk to people who either worked at the company, know of the company, or at the company, and see what it's like. See if it is a fit of where you want to go. For example, whenever I was looking for companies whenever I was finishing up my MBA, I wanted a company that wasn't going to settle. I wanted somebody who was going to keep innovating, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible for them for growth, for products, et cetera. And Bose was really the right fit. And so I think it's first be introspective, understand what it is that you want in your career. And I think as you're getting your MBA, it's a great time to do so and to understand what it is that's going to match your attitude towards your work. And then find a company that's going to match that. And then the product being the product is just going to follow suit, and you're going to have a wonderful time really understanding the customer and getting to learn all about them and figure out how to connect with them. But I think it's more about understanding who the company is and really trying to match that to your search first.
I like the way you thought about it, and I appreciate you mentioning like the introspective component of the job search as well, because that really is so important. And I appreciate that after doing that, you were most interested in a place that was always going to be trying new things and like seeing what was new and different. So I'm glad that Bose was a great fit and that your earbuds are a great testament to that. That's fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna move on to a question for Mridula and Danielle. What leadership skills have been most critical to your success in brand management or marketing? And how did you cultivate them? To what extent has your leadership style evolved over time? So we'll start with Mridula and then we'll transition to Danielle.
I'll speak to, in particular, how MBA helped me cultivate those leadership skills. During my MBA, I made it a point to work on a lot of industry consulting projects. Most of them were unpaid. My MBA program gave up, like so many MBA programs do, they give you opportunities to work with companies and help them think through problems. So I think over the period, I worked on 6 different projects. That really, I knew that for me, this was an area that I wanted to work on, coming from very hardcore data analytics and coming from India. So I wanted to have more opportunities to understand problems in the US context. So that really helped me. And of course, courses, classes across finance, accounting, marketing, analytics, strategy, all of that. And through the years, the thing that has helped me really stand out in meetings or even to my leadership has been the skill to be able to understand a problem from many different perspectives. So in my role, I work with finance. In communicating with them, they will have a very different perspective from maybe somebody working in media. Being able to talk to them and being able to understand their perspectives and providing them with the information that they need, something that answers their specific problem, this is what I have gotten comments on. And yeah, this I think has helped me a lot shine through. And I'm just I think that's it, right? And to what extent has the leadership style evolved over time? I think having spent now over 3 years at Kohl's in my role, instead of now just being the one who listens to what others say and digesting that information and processing it, I am now in a situation and feel more confident now making my own recommendations, and that is just a function of experience. Yeah, so yeah, that's it.
I think those are all incredibly helpful things to mention, and appreciate that you know, when you were in your MBA, you were really seeking out those real world consulting experiences. Doing 6 seems like a high number to me. So I'm sure that your classmates really saw your like interest and excitement in marketing and the companies as well that you were interviewing at. Danielle, same question to you about leadership skills.
Yeah, so when I think about like the leadership skills that you need to be successful in brand management, as I recalled earlier, I said that you're really like the hub of the wheel when you're in brand management. So you're influencing a lot of people. So it really goes to like you have to be able to be analytical, but you have to be able to take that information and transition it into like synthesizing all of that stuff that you're reading to really share out what are the most important parts that are within the data that you read and like what it means for the organization. So it really goes back to again like having a strong leadership presence, but really being able to influence people who might be like the CEO or it might be a VP, it might even be your peers because you're trying to get them along with the journey that you're trying to take the company. So really being able to articulate and be concise is something that I think is really important. Another thing I think that's really important also is like being really great at like collaboration. So like one of the things that I did even when I started Ocean Spray was when I had a project team, regardless of let's say when I was first started on innovation, I would meet with everyone who was going to be a key stakeholder just so that we could have like a relationship outside of like the project work so that when you're starting to work with them, it's more being able to like I guess work with friends a little more, and it allows you to be able to have like hard conversations sometimes so that no one's like taking it personal and you know like what the intention is of that person, but it also allows you to move fast because you have a relationship, so you're really just trying to build like really strong high performing teams. So I would say like what you really need when you're starting to think about like the skills is like being able to like have a leadership presence, so that could be like joining some like Toastmasters or different types of project like clubs that might have that. It's really not a project. But you could do more projects and present in different types of environments, even if it's a case competition, because honestly, all of this is repetition. Anyone who you look at who you might say is like a really great speaker, they've probably gotten there through repetition. So like finding some of those like skills or like opportunities that would allow you to do that. And then when I think about collaboration, honestly, a lot of these come through like clubs that you could do at school. Like you could be a president, you could be a participant, you could be doing all these different things. So I think when you're looking at your MBA program, figure out like what it is within there that can get you the leadership, the communication, collaboration. But then once you leave that environment, like find people within your organization who you trust, who can give you feedback when you're trying to do these things and see if you're actually like executing the way you want, because that's the only way you're going to get better is like just continuous feedback. So I would say like find that person within your organization once you get there, or maybe it comes through different projects so that you have like a sounding board or even someone who you could show your slides to make sure that, hey, is this this is what I'm saying, is this what you actually take from, or do what you do even when you do MBA applications, give them the deck and be like, do you know what I'm trying to get at, the same way you do with the essay when you're applying to school, to make sure like you're answering the question correctly. So I think those are honestly the biggest things. Like they're gonna be the things that you'll need regardless of what role you're actually applying to. Sorry, my voice is going down for a second.
Everything that you said makes a ton of sense, and I really appreciated that you were mentioning, you know, whenever you're on a project team, to make those relationships with your colleagues so that, you know, you can move quickly on things together, and already have that like strong relationship in addition to all the work that you're doing moving forward. So thank you for that. I found that really insightful. Danielle, next question back to you. What methods or mindsets help you to better understand consumer behavior? How do you balance the desire to stay on trend while maintaining the core aspect of the brand's identity?
I honestly feel like in brand management, you just have to really be a curious person. You want to be able to answer the questions of like why, or like trying to understand like what is making this person make this decision, similar to something Jessica said also earlier. So like it came to life a lot for me, especially when I was like on the innovation team. So thinking of like products that have launched, but maybe they're not excelling in market as we had planned, or maybe even thinking about markets that we would want to go after, that we don't have anything done so far. So really a lot of this comes through when you're in a brand management position. Let's use innovation as an example of like maybe it's ethnography. So that's usually like maybe having conversations while people are showing you their houses, or you actually going into their homes to understand like what are they doing in these environments, so that you could help understand like, so when they come to my product, like how do I help them within the day-to-day life of them. Within like brand management, we also might do like surveys, focus groups. So really trying to dig deep into like, if someone says like they eat watermelon every single day, like understanding the why, and like if they say it's for health, what does health mean to them, because everyone is different. So like you really have to be a curious person. Sometimes I shouldn't say this out loud. I've gone to the store and watch how people like interact, or like how they pick up a product, and like see what it is that they're paying attention to, so that you're understanding like what the consumers are doing, or what potentially might be it. Or if you're in the same aisle, like maybe listen to some of the things that they're asking others who they might be with, because it's telling you about like consumer behavior. And at the end of the day, regardless of what you might be doing as a marketer, like you have to think about product, you have to think about price, you have to think about placement, you have to think about promotion, like all these different things. So like the more you can take time to like step back and think through like, okay, so they said this, but why? And like you really want to start doing like the 5 whys, honestly. And then taking that information and then figuring out like, okay, so how does that relate to like what I'm actually trying to solve for within my own organization? And is it something that my brand actually can solve? Or sometimes like questions might come of like, or do we need to create a new brand or something else that could actually be something that could allow us to get to that problem to solve. So I think really when you start thinking about like how do you better understand consumers, some of it comes through research, but there are a lot of things that you could do by like listening to people while they're shopping, or going on to like apps and like seeing how people are responding to different social media. And like you really just want to be a curious person, honestly, because every problem that you're solving, you have to find a way to convince someone to actually buy what you're selling. So like you really want to understand like what is really driving that, so that you actually can solve it, because otherwise you will be solving the thing that really isn't the problem.
I have be curious underlined in my notes. I think that's a great thing to end on with your question. Next up, we'll go to Jessica. So, and I know Danielle has mentioned the hub of the wheel a couple of times. So this is this is kind of related to what she was talking about. So marketing often sits at the intersection of many departments. How do you build influence and alignment across these teams to move your initiatives forward?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Danielle has had a lot of great advice today about collaboration and working with teams. So I won't take too long on this question, because I think she really hit the nail on the head. But one thing I do want to add on to it, whenever you're actually talking about really influencing and moving things forward, my key thing that I do is first understand. You are all working towards the same goal as a business, but your paths there are going to be very different. So if you go to your cross-functional teams and really ask the question of like, okay, what is your path? What are you trying to do? Then you can understand what are the different ways people are, working together, working separately, working alongside each other, and you can build those bridges between them. So really, understanding each other's, motives and how you can get towards that other goal, you can help to really create that full picture of how you can bring it all together and get to that end goal together. And if you have that understanding, you're putting that into your work. Then when those other teams see the final product and see the final, answer to these questions, they are already aligned because you incorporated what they need to do too. So you're already kind of building that influence while pushing it forward at the same time.
I really liked how you talked about how, all these different departments are, we're all having the same goal, but we're just getting there different ways. And I think that that's a really insightful way to approach it. And agree that Danielle has had a lot of really great comments too on, what it means to be at the hub of the wheel and how to move forward with impact. So I appreciate you adding on to that as well. And Jessica, we're back to you for the next question. And it's a little bit long, so apologies if it takes me a while, but we'd love to learn a little bit more about how your identity as a woman has influenced your approach to work in this industry. Are there specific values, perspectives, or lived experiences that you bring to the table that have meaningfully influenced the way that you build brands or lead teams or connect with consumers?
Yeah, I think as I'm thinking through this question, there's one word that comes to mind that kind of helps encompasses a lot of aspects to bring this together, and the word is community. I think as women, we are very driven to have a community that we can, really thrive in, that we can talk to. And I think marketing is a very unique place where there is a lot of women working, so we can have that community, we can work with each other, and even with, not women, aka males, and other people, but we really can understand each other and really figure out how to communicate with each other. And so I think community is something that I really bring to my approach to work, because I bring it to build friendships and relationships with people who are outside my team. I build it to share ideas and to collaborate with people within the marketing organization. And I also bring it to the work. I think really, whenever we're talking about the consumers, even talking about how consumers perceive your product, you really can use your product as a base to really find people's interest, find the consumer's interest, and use your brand as a platform for people to connect through. The way that you do that is going to be different for different products, but I do bring that into my brand work too, to understand how I can bring these like-minded people together, because they do have something in common. They like this product. So how can you build a community off of that and let other people connect with each other through that? So I think long question, but the one word answer is going to be community for me.
I think that that's a great way to answer that question. And I appreciate that you took my big question and you were able to synthesize it down, which is something we talked a lot about today, that makes you successful in marketing and brand management. So thank you very much for that, Jessica. And I want to make sure that we are on time, because I know that some of us have meetings at at 1:45 Eastern. So I'm actually going to stop our line of questioning for this panel today, and just kind of wrap things up for the group. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. First of all, I just again want to thank our amazing panelists today, Mridula, Jessica, and Danielle, for sharing all of their amazing experiences. I know I learned a lot. I wrote many things down in my notes. I'm sure you could see my head down throughout our conversation. And I hope that everyone here did as well. I wanted to also let folks know that there are lots of different ways to connect with Forte moving forward throughout the academic year and beyond. One of those ways is actually through the MBA Virtual Leadership Conference, which is happening next Friday. There's still time for you to register if you are interested. It's a full day of great programming. You can come and go as you please. So if you have class, that's not a big deal. And then at the end of the day, there is a virtual career expo. So that would be a great way to learn more about opportunities at our Forte company members, for our Forte company members, and then ask questions from the folks that are there representing their organizations as well. So if you haven't had a chance to register, please feel free to. Like I said, there's time until next Thursday to make sure that you can secure your spot. And then I also wanted to mention that we would love to connect with you all on social media, so feel free to find Forte at any of these different places. And I did want to also mention that the Conquer Your Career webinar series explores lots of different career opportunities, whether it's a functional area or industries as well. So keep an eye on the Forte events calendar so that you can pick the different sessions that are most interesting to you. Our next one will be September 18th, where we talk about all things corporate finance. So with that, I just want to, again, thank everyone for being here today. Thank our amazing panelists for sharing their perspectives. We have recorded this webinar, so it will be available for our community members in the future. But other than that, we hope you had a great 45 minutes learning about brand management and marketing, and we'll talk to you all real soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.